Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for joining me. Thanks very much for being on time as well. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait a minute or so because I think we've got quite a few people that are expected on. If you could just give me a quick comment in the chat box to make sure that you can hear me all right. I think I've tested my microphone. Everything seems to be all right, but I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me. So if you pop some feedback in the chat box, that would be fantastic. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, hello, Joanna. How are you? So yeah, lots of familiar names on. So I hope you guys are all staying well. I hope you and your families are getting through this lockdown process. It all looks like we're getting to the end of it now, which is sort of the point of this webinar. So we can start preparing for the upturn, for everything returning back to normal. But you know, first and foremost, I hope your health is well. Let's have a look at what we're going to be talking about today. So first of all, a little bit about me. I know most of you have seen this before. Again, that's me with a haircut. I look more like Tom Hanks from Castaway at the moment. My hair, what I haven't ever discovered in my life is that my hair has a lot of volume. So my head is actually about twice the size as it is in that picture because I've got so much hair going on at the moment, which is why the video is very firmly turned off. My name is Chris Kirkwood. I'm the franchise director of Sourced. And in my background, I've founded, run and grown multiple businesses across different business sectors. I've been involved in property investment for about 10 years now. Smallest deal that I ever did was £55,000 and the biggest deal that I'm involved in is 150 million GDV. That's currently being built right now on Regent Road in Manchester. The £55,000 deal was funnily enough, just round the corner from Regent Road in Manchester in Salford, which was the first property I bought. That was bought for £55,000 and sold for about £90,000. And the whole of that refurb was actually funded by Salford City Council. So I made a really decent amount of money off that first ever refurb that I did because all of the costs involved in turning that property round were funded by the council. And it was a council scheme that was going on at the time. If you want to hear more details about that, then by all means ask me. I'll give you my contact details if you haven't got them already at the end. So across my 10 years or so in property, I've executed many different strategies myself. I've built my own portfolio and done that by a number of ways. And now what I do for Sourced is all of the franchisees, of which we have 70, they find property deals and then they send them across to me in the CRM system. And then I'm the person that looks at those property deals. And the point of using my experience or the point of having another set of eyes on those deals is not only to run over the numbers and make sure that the numbers work, but it's also to think a little bit more creatively, think strategically about how that deal's being put together, and coming up with different solutions that potentially that person, because of their lower level of experience, might not have thought about. So I'm there to really suggest to help the franchisee maximize the amount of money that they're making out of that deal. This is Sourced. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this right now. For the really keen-eyed amongst you, you'll notice that the website is actually slightly different now, in that we've changed the order of these columns. So now franchise is second from the left. It's just small details, and it's not actually that important or interesting. But we're changing things all the time. We're mixing up. From doing these £150 million developments to the way that our website looks. We're constantly testing new ways of doing things to see if we get better results. The one thing that I always mention on this slide is that I'm the only actual employee or person involved in Sourced that is on the website, and I always like to think that's because I'm by far the most important, which you can obviously agree with in the chat box, and I will pass that feedback on to everybody else that works at Sourced. So what have Sourced done so far? What's our growth been like? We've only been around since 2017, so we've been around a relatively short amount of time. I would imagine that most of you have been in property since around 2017. It's only a couple of years ago. But like I say, Sourced are now involved in a £150 million development on Regent Road in Manchester, as well as lots of other schemes around the country. So in that short amount of time, we've managed to have differing levels of involvement in lots of different schemes, including owning some of those schemes. So we've got a lot going on. The franchise part of Sourced was originally the first part of Sourced that was launched, which was in January 2017. And that was built over a period of months to the launch in September 2017. And very quickly, we hit 20 franchisees just in February of the following year. We then sought out FCA approval, because what we were trying to do was build a peer-to-peer planning, a peer-to-peer platform. And we were growing the franchise all the time. So in October 2018, we hit 40 franchisees. The peer-to-peer platform was launched. It's branded as Sourced Capital. And what that does, I'll give you a little bit more information about this later on at the end, but the peer-to-peer platform funds franchisees' deals. We only lend money to our franchisees, and we can lend up to 100% of all costs involved in doing a deal. And that's based on 70% of the GDV. I'll give you a bit more information about that towards the end, because that's not specifically what this webinar is about. But that's part of Source. That's what some of our franchisees take advantage of. We've got the £150 million development, which we launched in February 2019. And we were approved for ISA and pension funding in 2019. So now somebody can bring their ISA or bring their pension into our peer-to-peer lending platform. They can put that money in. They'll get a set return over a set period of months. And we can pool those investments together and fund our franchisees' deals. So the person that's investing through their ISA or their pension, they get a return on their money, and the franchisee gets to do their deal. So it's a win-win-win situation. Source Care was launched in September 2019. Now, I have explained a little bit about Source Care in the past. Source Care is something that we're looking into at the moment. There is the possibility of raising the end value of property projects by going into the care sector. And that's a combination of leases and REITs, if you understand that level of property investment. And we have these, by going into the care sector and getting these long-term leases, we're able to then sell these developments onto REITs, who basically, they just want the security of knowing that they're going to have a guaranteed income over a long period of time. We're currently building that out. We're currently testing that. We're currently making sure that we have the right people in place in order to take that part of the business forward. So that's what Sourced Care is about, because you'll see it on the website. So it's better that I explain it than just brush over it. And then in February 2020, we hit 70 franchisees. We just had another person sign up yesterday, so we're sort of midway through the 70s right now. Oh, and let me just say, while you're here, what I want to do is I'll leave all questions for the end, if that's okay with you. So I'll go through the presentation. If you've got a piece of paper or something, if you haven't got a piece of paper, go and grab one now. Write down the questions that you have, and let's deal with questions at the end, because usually we have like a 45-minute question and answer period at the end, which I'm happy to do again. But some people don't want to hang around for the question and answer period. So instead of prolonging the whole webinar, let's deal with all questions at the end. So we're currently on, I am going to answer this one question now because it's just come in, and it came in before I said that. And I think we're on about 73, 74 franchisees at the minute, Sham. So that's roughly where we are. I would have to check that to be 100% accurate though. So the purpose of this webinar, how to prepare for the property market upturn. So I think the first thing and the most prudent place to start is to talk about what's been happening just very briefly, and then talk about an upturn, because some of you might be very into reading the Sunday newspapers, reading the commentary from market analysts, and some of you might not be. So let's just basically go over what's been happening. So the last few months, transaction volumes have fallen very, very sharply. Now, this is a report that I got from, I'm taking most of this information from a report from Savills. I subscribe to the Savills reports. I think they're very, very objective. I think they're very insightful, and the amount of detail that they go into is fantastic. I'll give you a link to that in a little while. But basically what Savills have been saying is that transaction volumes have fallen sharply. Now, there's no mystery to that at all, is there? A lot of estate agents have been furloughed for the past couple of months. Instead of having 6 or 7 people in an office, they've now got 1 person in the office. So the number of transactions that could go through, even with 1 person in the office, will have fallen very sharply. But then you tie into that the lack of movement that people are allowed to do at the moment. And that's across the board. That's not just going out and seeing viewings, but that's getting surveyors out. That's anything that you need to do to purchase a property has been made much more difficult over the past couple of months in order to keep everyone safe. So it's absolutely no wonder at all that transaction volumes have fallen sharply. Now, this is quite interesting, though, the next part. The capital values have fallen by up to 10%. Now, if you remember when coronavirus first kicked off, the usual suspects, the red top newspapers were saying that the property market there's going to be a big crash. It was going to fail. We're looking at 25-30%. That just hasn't been the case. The number of transactions has dipped very sharply. However, the actual capital value of the properties hasn't really been affected too much. And Savills is saying that their understanding of the position is going to be that it's going to be a short, sharp shock. So volumes fall very sharply, capital values fall by a small amount, but it's going to happen very quickly, and then we're going to come out of it in a pretty good time as well. To the point where transaction volumes, by Q1 of 2021 should be back to around 80% of what they were before. So back to the start of 2021, we should be at about 80% of where we were in Q1 of, let's say, 2019, because that was the last time that Q1 had a full run without being affected by coronavirus. So 80% of the market should have returned to fairly normal at that point, which is a pretty healthy return. Now, transaction volumes fell very sharply because going into the lockdown, it happened very quickly. The market was affected very, very quickly. And I've done a webinar about this before to explain exactly what's happened. And at that point, we were talking a lot about the market changing from a seller's market to a buyer's market. So it changed from a seller's market to a buyer's market very quickly. And it looks like, going by the information provided by Savills, that it's going to return from a buyer's market back to a seller's market in a much more gradual process. They're saying that the recovery is going to be 80% by Q1 of 2021. So it's going to take a lot longer than it did to go into this coronavirus lockdown and the effect that had on the market to come out of it. It's going to be a much more gradual process. But demands are going to build and transaction volumes will remain lower than normal, but capital values are going to go back to fairly normal, because the amount of demand that's going to be in the marketplace is going to return those capital values while maintaining a slightly lower transaction volume. So that's what we're looking at the moment. So if you remember this slide from before, the seller's market means that there are more sellers in the market than there are buyers, and therefore the sellers have the control over the market. Because a seller knows that if they don't accept the terms offered by a buyer, another buyer is going to come along fairly quickly. So just to remind you what I mean by seller's market and what I mean by buyer's market. So before coronavirus, this is how the market was set out. There were a lot more buyers in the market than there were sellers, and it was a seller's market. You probably remember the time, looking around for deals, and it was difficult to find deals, and deals disappear very quickly. Because there are so many buyers out there that as soon as a deal comes onto the market, it gets snapped up very quickly. Now, what's happened since coronavirus was more property transactions fell through, and more property transactions, because the transactions fell through, more properties came back onto the market. But importantly, there were fewer buyers because the finance that was available was changed. So it became much more difficult very, very quickly to get finance to purchase a property. Now, you might remember when this first started, that we went from a 75 to 80% loan to value from buy-to-let mortgages down to a 60% loan to value. And it makes perfect sense that the lender is going to do that, because at that time there was quite a lot of uncertainty as to how coronavirus was going to affect the market. And so the lender was taking care of their downside. Just in case there was a downturn in the market, they lowered their loan to value. It makes perfect sense. But because the loan to value was reduced, it meant that a lot of people couldn't afford to buy property. So they might have had a deposit of, say, £20,000, but now they needed £30,000. So they were taken out of the market, which means there were fewer buyers that were able to buy the property. So you've got a combination of more properties, fewer buyers, and therefore it very, very quickly it became a buyer's market. So now going back to the other way, we are gradually going to return to the seller's market, but that transition from a buyer's market to a seller's market is going to be much, much more gradual. So the shift from a buyer's market was swift, and the change back will be more gradual. Prices haven't really changed that much, although transaction volume suggests there are deals in the market. Now, what do I mean by that? So there are fewer transactions going on, which means that fewer properties are being sold. But there are still people out there that need to sell their property. They would need to sell their property because of whatever personal circumstance they're in. Let's say that they inherited a property a little while ago, and that property sits empty and it's just costing them money through this whole process. And therefore, they're still going to be keen, if not more keen than they were before, to sell that property. What if they've just moved in with their partner and they've got a property that sits empty? Again, that's going to be costing them money. So if they just put that property on the market when the coronavirus crisis hit, and they weren't able to sell it or get it through a conveyancing in a timely fashion, potentially that property could still be on the market and could still be costing them money. And therefore, there are still deals out there on the market that you can find. So just to give you an example of the lending was reduced to 60% loan to value, but now already, and obviously we're going to be talking about how you prepare for the upturn, already lending is back to 80% loan to value from some lenders in the buy-to-let market. So the lenders have seen, okay, we're going to be fairly safe to return to previous levels because there's not going to be that much of a dip in the property market, and therefore they feel like they've taken consideration of the risk and they're happy to go back up to an 80% loan to value, which obviously presents opportunity for you. So what's going to happen over the next few months? You're going to continue to see motivated sellers on the market. There's going to continually be fewer buyers that are out there taking advantage and snapping up those deals from those motivated sellers. Agents are going to continue to be furloughed. Just today, actually, we heard that the furloughing, I don't know what you call it, the furloughing scheme is going to extend until October, I think I read. But lending is going to return to normal. So because there are going to be fewer transactions, I think agents are going to continue to furlough at least some of their staff. So the actual availability of agents is going to be less than it was before coronavirus. So what should you be doing right now? How can you take advantage of this situation? What does it actually mean to you, and what should you focus on? So for me, and if anybody's seen any of the stuff that we've put out over the last couple of weeks, I've done 15-minute interviews with lots of people from across property. We've had estate agents, letting agents, surveyors, all kinds of people who are involved in property at different levels. They've all said, and the reason that I asked them to come onto a webinar with me was because I think they had a good attitude to the way that they were dealing with the lockdown, because each one of them was focusing on what they could do instead of lamenting what they couldn't do. So the first people that I looked at, or the first people that I spoke to, all said that the thing that they focused on were the fundamentals. They took their business back to the very, very fundamentals of what they were doing. And that means building contact with estate agents. That means having conversations with estate agents to find out what estate agents are doing right now and how they can help them. It also means contacting solicitors, because it's not only estate agents that get offered property deals right now, it's solicitors as well. You know, if a property is coming out of probate, let's say for example, then that person, that solicitor will get wind of that property before even the estate agent does. Now, if you're involved in property, then you will have agents' telephone numbers in your phone. You will have solicitors' telephone numbers in your phone, and you will have surveyors' telephone numbers in your phone. So the first thing that you should do is get back to the fundamentals and tell these people that you are looking for property. Tell these people that you are actively searching property right now, because they might come across a project that you could then have access to. And then also keep in touch with your brokers, Now, it's important that you keep in touch with your brokers to understand exactly how what is available to you in the marketplace for financing at any one time. If you haven't got a broker, then you need to start to develop a relationship with a broker. You need to start to develop the kind of relationship where you get an update from that broker every 2, 3, or 4 weeks to tell you what is available in the marketplace. Because in any property deal that you do, you've got two sort of parallel lines of development going on. You've got the development of the property and you've got the development of the finance. And you've got to make those two parallel lines go in the same direction and basically support each other through that development until you get to the end of that development. Now, one of the things that we give these people at Sourced, give our franchisees at Sourced, is we give them a proof of funds and we also give them access to finance. So with our access to finance, first of all, you need to make sure that these guys understand what you have got. So for these agents, if you've got access to finance because you've talked to your broker and your broker's told you exactly what you can and can't borrow right now, you would go to the agents and you would put these deals together with the agent to purchase these properties off the agent or become a problem solver for that agent. The other thing that you would do is you would look at your direct-to-vendor material and use your time to target empty properties. So as well as the fundamentals of going back out to the estate agent market, because remember, estate agents sell 95% of properties in the UK, as well as going to solicitors and as well as going to surveyors, all of these people that are heavily involved in property, you need to make sure that they understand that you have whatever kind of proof of funds you have and that you have access to finance and that you're able to buy right now, because that's the important thing. You're not just window shopping. You're able to buy right now, because remember, a lot of those agents have been furloughed. So that agent isn't going to want to spend as much time sort of doing the sort of estate agent chit chat. They're going to want to get to the point of actually making sales quickly. And so if you have access to finance, you've got proof of funds and you can buy right now, they're going to be very, very excited about talking to you. Now at Source, like I say, we give all of our franchisees access to all of these things. If you haven't got access to these things, you need to put together a package that makes you sound just as appealing, because that is an absolute game changer in terms of making that agent want to speak to you instead of coming across as just another investor who's going to waste that agent's time. So create your direct-to-vendor marketing material and use your time to target empty properties. Now, what do I mean by that and how can you do that? At Sourced, we give our franchisees access to this kind of software. So on this software, if nobody's seen this before, let me just very quickly describe what this software will allow our franchisees to do. So on this software, what I've done, if you follow the cursor on the top left here, I've selected retail units A1, office units B1, and light industrial units B1C. And I've selected only unoccupied, vacant, or derelict units. Now, for those of you that are familiar, this is Manchester. And what that's done is it's brought up 25 results in Manchester for either retail, office, or light industrial units, which are unoccupied or vacant. And so I could then click on each one of those and get the details for each one of those, get in touch with the person that owns them and see if there's some kind of deal that we can create at the moment. Now, obviously those units are empty. And again, it's the same thing. It's a motivated seller who might be willing to let that go for a good price. Now, why did I specifically choose retail, office, and light industrial? Well, obviously, all of those three could be allowed under permitted development. So I might not even have to go through the planning process in order to get permission to convert any one of those units into a C3 residential. Now, obviously, looking at the feedback from Savills, looking at the report from Savills, if I was going to take on a project like this right now, by the time I've actually finished the project, it's probably going to be Q3, Q4 of 2021, which means that because these are probably going to be bigger projects, right? I'm probably going to turn like an office complex into flats, something like that. So if it's Q3 2021, I'm going to be selling those units back when the market has rebounded fully, and we're back to the normal transaction volumes, and we're back to the normal values. So even though I might be buying it now when the market is depressed, by the time the project has gone off, I will be selling it once the market has rebounded in order to maximize my profit. Now, this piece of software, we allow our franchisees to have access for a 50% discount over if you were going to go and get this software yourself. So that's another one of the benefits of Sourced. But this is the kind of thing that we're looking for right now. Now, I wanted to cover a little bit about mindset because I hear a lot of people at the moment, and I covered this in one of the previous webinars when the market changed from a seller's market to a buyer's market very quickly, and that a lot of people were just panicking because they didn't understand what was happening. Having the ability to stand back and assess exactly what's going on is very, very important. Now, what I'm hearing at the moment is that estate agents are hard to get hold of. And I get quite a lot of feedback from watching Facebook, looking at all kinds of social media, that people are complaining that estate agents are hard to get hold of. And I'm not denying that in any way. But people seem to give up at that point. They say, well, oh God, I tried to call the estate agent and I just couldn't get through to them. And then I had to go and do something else. And they sort of let it go and they admit defeat. Now, they seem happy to admit defeat at that point because what they're saying is, yeah, I've been really busy. Didn't get anywhere, but being really busy. And that level of commitment seems to be fine with them. But for me, that doesn't work. That's not measuring the right thing, because what you should measure is success. And your success should be measured on actually getting done what you want to get done. So therefore, what you should be doing is you should be measuring actually having the conversation with the agent, not whether you tried. Because if anybody comes to me and tells me that they've tried to do something, I'm really not interested in it. I only care whether you've actually done what you said you were going to do. So if you've made contact with that agent, if you've had the negotiation, if you found the details, then that's great. If you've tried, well, you need to go and try again until you've actually been successful, because that's what you should be measuring. We're all about results, because it's got to be about results. Anything other than the results just isn't good enough. So there are more opportunities on the market right now. That's unquestionable. However, they are more difficult to convert because you can't get through to the estate agent to start off with. It's more difficult to find a surveyor. Some estate agents are not accepting new property leads. Some lenders have been making lenders have come back to the market with like an 80% loan to value. But before that, it was more difficult to get lending, or you needed more skin in the game in order to get lending. So I don't deny in any way that it's more difficult to get a deal through. However, people are getting deals through. I know surveyors who are going out to survey properties. I know lenders who are back in the market at a similar level. I mean, for the franchisees, for example, the peer-to-peer platform that we have at Sourced, we haven't changed our criteria at all through this process. So all of our franchisees have had the opportunity to take borrowing from the peer-to-peer platform on the normal levels pre-coronavirus. But realistically, you might have to put a bit more effort in to get to that result, which is absolutely fine. However, if somebody, again, looking at it objectively, looking at this mindset thing in an objective way, if somebody said to you, you can make 30 grand off that property deal, but you've got to make 4 more phone calls, would you make those 4 more phone calls? Of course you would. However, in that moment, when you've made that first phone call and it doesn't come off, it's very, very easy to walk away because you're involved in it at that point. What you need to force yourself to do is look at the overview objectively and think, all right, I have got to put more effort in. There are, that one agent is now fielding 50 phone calls a day instead of 30 like before coronavirus. However, it's going to get me to my result and where I want to get to quicker. And therefore, I am going to put in those extra phone calls. I am going to continue. I'm not going to let this go, because this is all part of my grand plan to build my personal wealth. So getting the deal is a success, not being busy. So there's like a trade-off here. What you need to do is you need to get the deal, because that's making progress. How busy you are isn't progress. That's potentially just not being efficient. So you need to look at those 2 metrics. You need to be as efficient as you possibly can be, but also your level of success should be determined on actually getting the result and not how much effort you put into getting that result. So when is the right time to buy? That's something that we said we were going to cover. Now, already the lending market is returning to normal, as we've talked about. Some lenders have come back in at 80% buy to let on a standard buy to let mortgage, and gradually, as the market returns and the sellers returns to a seller's market, opportunities will become harder to find. However, money lending will relax. Money lending will become easier because that's how the markets work. In a buyer's market, borrowing the money is harder, but there are more opportunities. In a seller's market, there are fewer opportunities, but borrowing the money is easier. And it's all a trade-off between balancing those criteria. So the quicker you can secure a deal now, the more likely you are to negotiate a great price. Now, you've got a fantastic opportunity at the moment as well. Because of the lockdown, you could potentially secure an opportunity now, but pause that deal in conveyancing. For example, making the offer subject to viewing, making the offer subject to a survey if you can't get a surveyor around there right now. And what that will do is it will secure the property to you. However, that deal won't be able to progress until lockdown has finished. And by the time that lockdown is finished, there will be more lenders that come back into the market to lend on a more preferential rate. And even though you've secured the property at the best opportunity that you can, because you're not going to progress that conveyancing until a couple of months down the line, lending will be easier for you, lending will be cheaper for you, and you'll get a better deal on the lending. So focus on the fundamentals, measure results by success, and then play the game intelligently to make the best of the opportunity that is presented to you. Now, just to remind you, I've shown you this slide before as well in some of the previous webinars. What financing is available to you. Now, all of this is, all of the details on here are pre-coronavirus. So the loan to values and the details on there are pre-coronavirus. So if you can get lending anywhere near close to pre-coronavirus levels already, then I would say that it's not going to get much better than that. I know the Bank of England base rate has gone down a little bit more, but in terms of making the deal go from being profitable to unprofitable, it's unlikely to have that much of an impact on the deal. So if you can get lending based on figures around these numbers, then you're looking at pretty decent lending. Now, if you want to go back to have a look at that slide and have that slide explained to you and explained exactly what the opportunity is in this slide. For example, bridging is based on loan to value, peer-to-peer is based on gross development value, mortgages are based on, everyone quotes mortgages as loan to value, but they're not loan to value, they're loan to purchase, because the mortgage company doesn't care as much about what the property is valued for as it does about the purchase price of the property. And then commercial is based on loan to income. And they're the loan to value, or they're the lending rates down there for value or GDV or LTP or LTI. So there's a lot of information in there, and there's a lot of opportunity in that one slide. If you want to find out more about it, then head over to our Source YouTube channel and check out some of the previous webinars, some of the previous stuff that we've put on there. There's a huge amount of education and information on the Source YouTube channel. So, and we put all of the webinars that we do on there. So if you want to stay up to date with exactly what we've been putting out, then go to the YouTube channel, hit subscribe, hit the bell to make sure that you're notified every time we release something new. We don't spam the YouTube channel. You know, we maybe put 1 or 2 videos on a week. So we produce a regular amount of content, and it's all useful content that you can actually, you know, put into place. For example, how to work out the return on capital employed, how to work out the yield, how to work out the return on investment. A lot of people don't understand what those 3 things are. So understanding exactly that and how it can show you what opportunity is in a property investment for you, then, you know, they're a great place to start. But we've got pages and pages of videos for you to have a look through. So lending had become more difficult to obtain, and there were lower loan to values and higher costs. Now, the sooner you take lending, the more likely the price will be higher. And this is basically what you're working with right now, where you've got opportunity and you've got available lending on a kind of seesaw. And the opportunity is there right now, but if you take the opportunity now, the available lending will be slightly more expensive. So it's balancing exactly where that seesaw is. Now, like I mentioned before, Source franchisees have lending available on exactly the same terms. So they don't have to balance this seesaw. They can just focus on the opportunity without having to worry about the funding. But what you do need to do is make sure that you do your due diligence and do your due diligence correctly. Now, again, if you remember some of the previous stuff that we've done, and again, there's a whole webinar about this, your due diligence should be done in the same format. And we recommend 4 different stages to due diligence. And they are overview, red flags, numbers, and certainty. Now, for the overview, I've put together this little spreadsheet. It's just a quick look at exactly what the profitability of a project is. And for me, I've distributed this to all of the franchisees. And the reason I've done that is because it really nicely breaks down the 3 key stages in looking at a property development. So stage 1, you've got the purchase. And if you were just going to flip that, you can just stay on stage 1 because that works out the flip profit, the shortfall that you might have, the available lending, the cost of lending. It puts all of that in there for you because it's got a couple of formulas built into it. I would highly recommend you do something like that in order to work out what level of profitability you're going to see in flips. Stage 2 is refinancing. So on here on refinancing, and as you can see in that box there, I've got mortgages at 75%, and that will tell me how much it's going to cost or how much I can borrow on that mortgage, if there's any money left in the deal, and what the overall refinance money left into the deal is. And then stage 3, after that refinance, we've got the rental income broken down, including all costs. So you could use the view of that spreadsheet as a guideline as to how to lay out your spreadsheet and how to make it look. But I would highly recommend having something very quick that you can just throw the numbers into, and immediately it will kick out the profitability numbers, because that's your overview. You don't want to get too bogged down on your overview at going into the depths of the numbers. Oh, let me go back to that one. So that's your overview. And if it passes your overview, and if it comes out in a green box and saying that it's going to be profitable, then you can then move on to your red flags. And as your red flags, the biggest red flag that's out there is going to be planning. If you've got anything to do with planning, you need to make sure that you understand that planning very, very well. Other examples of red flags can be legislation, local legislation. For example, Article 4. Article 4, in some of the projects that we were looking at before, the permitted development rights from retail or offices to residential, there could be an Article 4 in place to stop that development happening because the council doesn't want any of those permitted developments going ahead. So that would basically throw that deal out of the water immediately. So that's what I mean by red flags, anything that's really going to severely hamper that deal going ahead. And then by the time you get into number 3, you're going to go into those numbers and you're really, really going to investigate exactly what the cost is. So instead of taking a rough build cost, you want to get the exact build cost. Instead of looking at the price for borrowing, you want to get an agreement in principle for the level of borrowing, so you can see exactly what the cost is going to be for that. And at that point, you're collating the exact information that you need to see to the pound how much money you're going to make out of that property deal. And then finally, you're going to be looking at your certainty. So what's the demand like in that area? If you're going to be creating a HMO, how many HMO rooms are available in that area, and how many people are looking for HMO rooms in that area? You very quickly want to work out what your demand is. They're the 4 stages of due diligence, and I would highly recommend that you stay sort of locked into that process of looking at the due diligence. So specific tips, you need to focus on your fundamentals. You need to focus on your results and not just your activity. And you need to keep in close contact with key people, estate agents, solicitors, brokers, and surveyors. Make sure that they know that you're out there, because a lot of people in property have seen that money lending has become much more difficult, and they've just disappeared. They're not even looking for property anymore. So loads of people have exited the property market, and maybe they'll come back when some kind of certainty returns to them, but there's still a lot of opportunity out there. So make sure that you're staying in touch with the people that are your key contacts. And for those key contacts, become the solutions orientated person. They'll be facing lots of difficulties, just like everybody else is. And so be the go-to person, become solutions orientated. Be the person that they can go to in order to help fix things, because then they'll keep coming back to you and they will present you more opportunity. Now, another thing that we're not going to talk about particularly today is building your social presence. Again, you're doing the same thing as you are for your key contacts. You're going to build your social presence in order to tell people that you're out there and that you're looking for opportunities now, and potentially you can help them solve problems, so that you build your social presence, you build your community, and more people will come to you and offer you property deals. You know, I've done this over the last few years. I've built my social presence. I've had property deals offered to me through people that I'd never met before, and I was the only person that they'd offered it to because of the value that I was putting onto social media. I've just recorded an hour-and-a-half webinar with Ben Moore, who is a social media consultant. I don't think that one's on YouTube at the moment, but go onto YouTube and hit that subscribe button and hit the bell. And as soon as that webinar goes on there, make sure you read it, because Ben does phenomenally well out of social media, and there's no reason that anybody else can't do very equally as well out of social media. So utilize available software for shortcuts, like the empty properties thing that I showed you. If you've got access to anything like that, then absolutely take advantage of it and just make it happen. You know, there's nothing stopping you making this happen right now. The market is still open. There are still opportunities out there. There are still solutions that you can find in order to make money out of property. So it's up to you to get out there and to make it happen. So for the proof of funds and for the lending that we offer our franchisees, this is how it's based. So like I said, it's based on 70% of the GDV. So imagine £100,000 purchase price and £30,000 of works. If that GDV was then £200,000, that means that they could borrow, based on 70% of that £200,000, £140,000. Now, in this case, that gives them enough money to purchase the property, pay for the works, and associated costs. Let's say that the associated costs fit into that extra 10 grand that they haven't used there. But that means that they don't need to provide this chunky deposit like you would if you were using a bridger or if you were buying it on a mortgage. So they don't have to have that deposit in order to make that deal happen. So we've been putting a lot of information into our Sourced Franchise Facebook group. So a couple of days ago, I did a series of 5 webinars on all the government schemes that are available, like the furlough scheme, like the bounce back loan. I did that with our accountant, and we've released them to our franchisees in their exclusive franchise Facebook group. So hopefully you've got some resource like that, where people are feeding you all the opportunity that's available to you at the moment. And there you go. The funding that we offer can fund up to 100% of a profitable property investment. So the key factors in making this a reality are: what is the strategy you're looking at? What's your personal situation and your financial situation? How much knowledge do you have? What's your focus? Your hunger for success? What's the market like, and what's lending like? And we work with you on all of these points to help you see what the opportunity is and help drive you towards that opportunity. Now, again, in the last webinar, I changed that to 70, but I haven't done it in this one. So we've got 70 franchisees across the country. We've got an exclusive Facebook group. We've got an exclusive WhatsApp group. These guys are very, very active. They're constantly talking to each other. There's been a lot of chat today in the WhatsApp group, actually. And this is one of our franchisees who took out our lending. So from the Sourced franchise, we give people about 35,000 property leads per year. And those leads come in all different, organized in different ways. So they'll come in as below market value leads, or portfolio leads, or refurbishment apartments, HMO, commercial, or planning. And they will come straight into our Sourced CRM system. And then it's up to the franchisee to have a look through those leads, see if there's anything that is worth pursuing, and then doing the due diligence to see if they can make money off that deal. We also have access to over 100,000 investors. And those 100,000 investors are very active in buying property deals from our franchisees. Just today, I was sorting out a reservation fee that had been paid to us from our through our website for one of our franchisees' deals. So somebody had seen that deal on the website, and they had paid the reservation fee, which was the sourcing fee for that franchisee, and now they're going through conveyancing to sell that deal. We also put on a huge amount of training throughout the year. Our training schedule covers all of these topics, and during this lockdown, actually, I've thought of 3 or 4 more topics that I want to cover and that we're building out, including getting specialist tax advisors in, and working on a little bit more on mindset, and a few other projects where we're going to put on a couple of days of training for the franchisees. The induction day is compulsory, but then after that, they can choose exactly which one of these training days that they want to come onto. So you can download our training schedule right here if you go to that link. There's over 70 training days throughout the year, and they can come on, jump off whichever training days that they want to. They can come onto the same training day multiple times. It's completely up to them. We want to provide as much education for them as possible. And, you know, somebody will come onto a course, let's say rent to rent, and they'll decide it's not for them and they never need to come on rent to rent again. However, somebody else might come on commercial conversions and put that into their strategy to start that kind of project in 18 months, 2 years' time. But before they start that, they can come back onto the commercial conversions course, remind themselves what was available, and then they can head off, knowing that knowledge is fresh in their mind. And all of that is included in the franchise. So this is what the first half of the year looks like. This is what the second half of the year looks like. We've also got the tie-in with Land Tech, with Land Insight, to give us 50% off using Land Insight if you're part of the franchise. So 50% off that software, where you can identify different use classes, you can identify planning gain opportunities, you can there's a huge amount of information in there. Go and have a look at Land Insight, but being part of Sourced gives you 50% off the subscription to that software. And in terms of support, we've got lots of stuff going on. We've got monthly training events. We've got you'll have a dedicated account manager, unlimited deal review. You've got one-on-one calls, optional one-to-one visits. You've got bi-monthly training support days, and lots and lots and lots of email and video support, to the point where I'm more busy now than I have ever been since I joined Sourced a couple of years ago. So the costs for being part of Sourced, well, you get your own territory, you get all of the training that we've just talked about, you've got the proven business model, and you've got a huge amount of exposure to our help, support and guidance, and that costs £12,500 plus VAT. And you then pay a monthly license fee, which covers all of your property leads, all of your investor leads. Again, you've got the support associated with it. You've got the bi-monthly support days, and of course, importantly, you've got access to the peer-to-peer platform to give you that 70% GDV lending. You've got the training events, you've got SIN management if you wanted to host your own events, and you've got legal documents. Now, if you were going to go and get those investor leads and those property leads alone, they would cost you just shy of £2,000 a month. That's just for the investor leads and the property leads. That doesn't include the peer-to-peer platform. It doesn't include the support. It doesn't include the CRM system that we constantly converse with each other on. That's just for the property leads and the investor leads. Sourced, we charge you £200 per month for exactly the same thing, and then all the other features on top of that. Because we work on the money on the basis that we make money when you guys make money. This is a project that's going on right now. 14 apartments being built in Bournemouth. This is Chris Richardson, our Bournemouth franchisee. This is his first ever deal that he's doing, and we're helping him convert that B1 office into 14 apartments. The GDV of this is about 2.2 million, 875,000 purchase, and the profit is going to be circa £1 million for that deal. This is Everton, who joined us in the Barnet kind of area, and Everton had a different journey, because Everton wanted to look after some cash flow, because he wanted to exit the employment that he was in. And so what Everton focused on was looking at a serviced accommodation unit. So he got a serviced accommodation unit in Essex, which was making him about £800 per calendar month. So whatever scale of property investment, we're here to help guide these guys through making money. So there's the email address at the bottom there, franchise@source.co. If you have any questions, or if you have any feedback, any follow-up, then please get in touch with us at franchise@source.co. And if you've got any questions right now, I'd be happy to answer those questions. And I'm going to jump straight into the chat box and see if there's anything on there. Sunny, you've asked what the name of that software was, so it was Land Insight. And there you go. So if you've got any other questions, please feel free. I'll just stick around here for a couple of minutes. And another one just come in. So Nana, thanks for the question. I'm interested in the franchise. What are the next steps? So the next steps would be if you send an email to that franchise@source.co, that will go through to Monica, but Monica will put you in touch with Sam. And Sam is our franchise manager, and Sam can answer your questions that you might have. If you want to get some information before you talk to Sam, you can go to our website. On the franchise part of our website, you can download our franchise prospectus, and there's a lot of information in there. So you can have a look in there to see, to answer some of the questions that you have before you speak to Sam. So one of those two options: either you can speak to Sam by using the email address at the bottom there, or you can download our prospectus from our website. Completely up to you. So Sonny, another question. What did you mean by investor costs per lead for £15 on the open market versus in-house? So if you go to, you can buy investor leads, Sonny, that's what we mean by that. And investor leads will generally cost you 15 quid per investor lead. A property lead will generally cost you about 50 quid per property lead. So that's what we're comparing those costs to. So if you were to go out and provide and buy as many investor leads and property leads as we supply you with in a calendar month, it would cost you about just under £2,000 based on those open market figures. So that's what we're getting that from, and we know that because we used to buy them. Can you pay the £12,000 in installments? You can pay the £12,500 in installments. However, you need to have paid the full £12,500 plus VAT before you become a franchisee, before you have access to the training. So we do insist that you need to have paid all of that before you jump on board with Sourced. What areas are available? Good question, Clive. To list all of the areas that are currently available in the UK would take us quite a long time. So perhaps if you give me a little bit to go with, Clive, and tell me roughly where you are, that would be very helpful. Okay, Nana, I will chase that up for you. I'll make sure that Sam does that. Perhaps you could send me the questions that you have about the franchise. So I'm sure you've got my email address from a previous webinar, but it is chris.kirkwood@sourced.co. So send that to me, Nana, and I will chase that up for you. Is it split by county or postcode? Yeah, good question, Clive. It's split by postcode. So we work on a 40,000 household area, but that's created by the different postcodes, and we work on postcode districts. So for example, in Manchester, a postcode district would be M1 or M2 or M3. It wouldn't go any more specific than that. If I do not want to go through a franchised route, but want specific info on, say, a region, what should I do? I don't really understand what you mean by that, Cynthia. What information would you need on a region? Can you expand on that a little bit for me? Say I'm interested in HMOs. This is another question from Sham. Say I'm interested in HMOs, and in my territory there is not much demand. Then how easy or difficult is it to change strategy? It's very easy to change strategy, and I would never, it's a good question, because that's the kind of question that we get from investors all the time. An investor will jump on board and they'll say, I'm really interested in HMOs. And my standard response to this, which I can prove time and time and time again, would be, okay, well, you tell me what you're interested in about HMOs. What is it about HMOs that really interests you? And they will say, well, I'm interested in the income. Okay, so what level of income are you interested in? What does it for you? Is 10% return on capital employed? Is that a good amount of income? And to that, they'll probably say yes. And at that point, I'll say to them, well, what if I can get you 15% return on capital employed? Would you look at that deal, even though it's not a HMO? And 9 times out of 10, they're going to say yes to that, because people tend to look at HMOs as, and they discount, or they haven't learned about all the other opportunity that's out there. And what we try and get our franchisees to do is to understand and jump on opportunity, rather than be absolutely rigidly stuck to a specific strategy. We want people to build relationships and get opportunity, and have the backing and the confidence in us to then see them through getting that deal done. So that's what we're trying to do. And I've never seen an area where there's only been one strategy available. There's lots of different opportunities in an area. For example, the permitted development stuff that we were looking at earlier. Oh, do we cover Northern Ireland as a region? That's a great question. I'll have to look into that for you. Can you send me an email, please, Tanya? That would be great. Do the source training modules cost per module, or are they all available at no cost to the franchisee? They're all available, Gordon. There's no additional cost for any of the training that we put on. It's all available to you as many times as you want to come and do it. Alton in Hampshire. Well, that's thrown me, Clive. I'm not familiar with that area, Hampshire. So Hampshire is around Southampton-y sort of area. Is that about right? I think off the top of my head, we don't have anybody in that area. The best place for you to go, Clive. I was hoping you were going to tell me somewhere that I was familiar with, but I'm not familiar with Alton in Hampshire. So I've shot myself in the foot. If you go to our website and you go to the property part of our website, so the property part of our website is the red column on the left-hand side. Click on there, and then at the top, go to About, and then click on Offices. And if you go to Offices, a map of the UK will come up, and it will show you every single franchisee that we have and where they are. So you can check exactly who is in your area and also who's the closest to your area as well. So that would be the best place for you to go. Sonny, that makes sense. Where would one get these leads from out of interest, just comparing versus the in-house product? Well, we generate our own leads from a combination of website and advertising. So that's where we get our leads from. Where would you generate your leads from? If you were going to get those 15 quid leads, I mean, just go onto Facebook and get into the property groups and say, I am looking for property investor leads. Who can help me out? They're absolutely everywhere. So Melvin, I'd be interested in a franchise and what areas are available. I'm in Leeds, but interested in the West and South Yorkshire. Yeah, there's quite a lot of opportunity going on in Yorkshire. Again, what I would do is get in touch with Sam, franchise@source.co. Send an email there, Melvin, and he'll be able to guide you into exactly what areas are available in South Yorkshire. Gordon, do you have to stick to one strategy? No, you don't have to stick to one strategy at all. Like I said, I want you to be an opportunist. I want you to be able to identify and jump on opportunity. So I want you to have a full range of skills in order to then execute. Now, instead of being focused on strategy, because I don't think that works, what you should be focused on is the amount of time it takes you to make money out of a property deal. For example, if you need to focus on cash flow, then it would be stupid to go through a planning application and a new build process, because that's going to take you an awfully long time in order to make money out of that deal. If you need to focus on cash flow, there are 5 or 6 strategies that you can focus on that will get you cash within the first 2 months of you joining, so long as you're committed to generating that cash. That's one of the first modules that we, or one of the first training sessions that we put on to show people that actually, instead of looking at strategies like other people train, you should be looking at cash flow and how you build your wealth. Because what you'll do is you'll focus on cash flow to start off with, you'll start to generate cash, and then you can move into bigger strategies that are going to pay you more money. And you need to build it organically rather than trying to force your hand and foregoing cash flow and essentially winding up in a worse situation when you started. Okay, Cynthia, so you got back to me. For example, if I want information on getting leads from sourced on, say, buying property in Cumbria, do you suggest I become a franchisee, or could I get them from your specialist who deals with Cumbria? So the specialist that deals with Cumbria will be giving you information on getting leads from sourced. So you could, the person that deals with Cumbria, what they would do is they would assess property deals for you and then pass them on to you for a fee. So it's just a metric, Cynthia. You just need to work out what's best for you, because you could buy the franchise for £12,500 and then not ever have to pay anybody to get those leads yourself. But if there's cost of getting one of those property, getting somebody to source that property for you is £3,000, then obviously you'd only get 4 of them before it would be far better for you to join the franchise. So it depends on your situation and how many you want to get over the next few years. Thank you, Tanya, for the email address. With due respect, if one is not happy with the training, what's your refund policy? Reason once bitten, twice shy. We don't have a refund policy. We've never had anybody complain about the training or the access to anything. Yeah, well, no, we don't have anything like that. If I could join as a franchisee today, how long would it realistically take to get up and running, to get through basic training, etc., and begin to operate, please? Okay, well, to get through basic training, that's the issue that we have at the minute because of the lockdown, Paul. So what we're doing is our next training session was actually booked for the end of this month, but we're not going to be able to put that on because of the lockdown. So as soon as lockdown is over, we're going to put on an induction training as soon as we possibly can in order to get people to jump on board and to get them up and running. Your question is then broken down into two separate areas. So first of all, if you join today, you wouldn't have to start paying the monthly fee until after you've done your induction training. So essentially you get access to all of our material, access to the peer-to-peer platform, access to our support, access to our specialist franchisee videos, and access to our CRM system before you come on induction training and before you start paying your monthly fee. After you've done induction training, how quickly you can then put that into practice and start making money is about you. Now, we're going to help you. We're going to help you come up with a plan. We're going to help you come up with a focus as to exactly what you should be looking at. But it does depend on you executing on what we're telling you to do. For example, like I said, if you need to work on cash flow, there are 5 or 6 different strategies for you to work on, to concentrate on for cash flow in order to make money. Now, we can help you do that, but you need to go out there and you actually need to make it happen. But realistically, you know, we've had somebody sell a deal for X thousands of pounds in their first month of joining. We've had somebody purchase a rent-to-rent deal, which was going to generate them, you know, roughly £1,000 worth of cash flow for the next 3 years within their first month of joining, and that's all from the training that they first came on. So it can be done very quickly. You need to be focused and you need to be very disciplined to not get distracted by, you know, a commercial conversion that's going to potentially net you £600,000. But the amount of time it's going to take you to get that money out is 18 months down the line. That doesn't serve you right now. You need to focus on what serves you first. And in this current climate, so that's you, Paul. And in this current climate, what would you say is the best strategy at the moment? Motivated sellers, Cynthia. It's motivated sellers. They're absolutely everywhere. Motivated sellers. You just need to get out there and get through the gatekeepers and make sure that you're making contact with these guys. And Paul, thank you for all that. That's great. You are very welcome. Let's just have a look. I've got a couple of Q&A. Miriam, I will chase that up for you. All areas exclusive. Good question, Mohammed. Are all areas exclusive? Yes, they are. So nobody else can deal in your area, in your territory, unless you agree to it. It's completely up to you. That is your say. We don't force your hand in any way. Okay. Miriam, again, can you send me an email to chris.kirkwood@source.co? That would be fantastic, and I'll chase that up for you. So if there's no other questions, a relatively short question and answer session today, because it usually takes a lot longer than that, then I will bid you a good afternoon and hope that you take care of yourselves and look out for our next webinar. And don't forget, go to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that bell. And I will see you all very soon. Thanks very much.